Hello everyone, and welcome to the special edition of dLocal Insights, the dLocal Investor Relations podcast. I'm Chris Strohmeyer, SVP of Corporate Dev at dLocal, where I lead the strategy, Corp Dev, and investor relations functions. In today's episode, we are changing the format just slightly. We're handing the mic over to Ed Aitken, our VP of Corporate Affairs, for a conversation with Yang Yang, dLocal's newly appointed CEO for Asia Pacific, reporting to our CEO, Pedro Arnt. Asia Pacific is one of the most dynamic and most misunderstood payments regions in the world. Global merchants spend years working tirelessly to lay out the groundwork to operate there. And yet, as Yang Yang will argue in this conversation, that's not actually the hard part. The hard part is understanding how people in each market truly want to pay and building the infrastructure to meet them there, which is where dLocal comes in. In this conversation, Eddie and Yang Yang explore what it really takes to win in Asia, why the region's fragmentation is an opportunity rather than a barrier for us, and why the companies that move now are the ones who will shape the next decade of global commerce in the region. Through this conversation, I think you'll glean real insights on why we are so excited about Asia in the mid-long term here at dLocal. Ed, Yang Yang, welcome to dLocal Insights.
Hi, Yang Yang. So nice to have you on board as our new CEO of APAC for dLocal. I'm going to jump straight in with our first question, which is global merchants spend an enormous amount of energy and time getting into the Asian markets, licenses, partnerships, localizations. But you've actually said that that's not the hard part. So can you tell us what you think is the hard part?
First of all, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I think that APAC is one of the most complex, regions in the world when it comes to payments, when it comes to global commerce, but also one of the most exciting. And it's true, global merchants spend so much time on the mechanical portions, getting the licenses, locking down the partners, doing the paperwork, and setting up the entities that allow them to operate on the ground. But the real work is in understanding their target market and the people they want to reach. I think that for a lot of global companies, Asia is so far away that maybe the question has never come up. How do people in each market actually pay? What do they trust as a form of payment? Is it cards like it is, in the rest of the world, or is it maybe something else? Because for most of Asia, the answer is always a local wallet, instant payment rail, bank transfer, nowadays maybe a QR code. So the hard part is understanding that deeply, having empathy for the people that you are trying to service, and then doing that work on the ground, taking the local payment method that the local population will prefer, and then adapting that to carry the experience that a global platform expects and bring homogeneity to the rest of the experience that the global platform offers across the rest of the world. So things like tokenization, one-click subscriptions, that's not always table stakes out here in Asia, but that is how you're able to bring the excluded majority into the modern economy by working with local payment methods, alternative payment methods, to be able to include the same features.
Asia Pacific is called the most dynamic payments market in the world, but dynamic can also be a synonym for fragmented. How do you see it?
So I think that it's undeniable that Asia is fragmented, right? There are hundreds of systems. Sometimes in a single country, there could be multiple national switches. There's no single standard across the region. However, I see this as an opportunity in one of the most connected commerce ecosystems on earth. Asia doesn't just trade within itself, it trades with the entire rest of the world and is home to one of the largest cross-border money flows anywhere. It's actually an invitation to anyone who's willing to get their hands dirty and do that unglamorous work, the nitty-gritty of going partner to partner, abstracting the complexity of having to work with each individual payment method into something that works on a global standard to the level of performance with the types of features that a global merchant expects. If we can do that, then we can treat that fragmentation as not being a barrier to entry, but the reason that we should enter and our right to operate and to function in this market.
The US companies, many of whom we serve, tend to treat APAC and Asia as a future opportunity rather than a sort of an immediate priority. Is that a mistake?
So I would hesitate to call it a mistake because I think that based on current analysis, it is completely understandable. Asia is a very small slice of their volume today. So when they're looking at their charts, they're looking at their projections, it's very far down the priority list. But then it's also worth asking, why is Asia so small as a market when it holds some of the biggest populations, the fastest growing economies in the world? And a lot of that answer actually lies in payments. If a product focuses on only taking cards, you've excluded much of your total addressable market in the region before you even launch, because Asia, by definition, is a young, mobile first, rapidly growing population, but they do not prefer, or a lot of times do not have access to the type of cards that dominate payments in the rest of the world. So that small number shouldn't signal weak demand to the companies that are wondering whether they should come to Asia or make Asia a bigger priority. It's just that the actual demand on the ground is underserved today because they're waiting for someone to come along and make it possible for them to pay for some of these global services. And so I think the companies that understand that, come to Asia, adapt to those local markets, are the ones that will be able to shape the next few decades of global commerce, because they will already have established their presence in Asia by the time it grows even further.
My next question is that dLocal is relatively new in Asia. What does it offer that merchants can't find elsewhere?
I think that's a great question, because there's one way of looking at being relatively new is that you don't have a huge base on the ground yet. But another way of looking at being relatively new is that we have the luxury and the ability to then build from scratch and to leapfrog any sort of legacy inefficiency that exists. We can, from the beginning, build the most advanced payments experience alongside our partners. We can go to the national switches directly. We can work with local infrastructure players. We can even work with the schemes that define the rails right now and basically build to the standard that we know that our global merchants are looking for. Because right now, what we're seeking to offer isn't just coverage. It is the effortless translation and abstraction of complexity. We want to turn the messy reality of payments on the ground, allowing access to all of these local payment methods that unlock the bulk of the Asian demographics here. But we want to turn that into one clean integration, one clean abstraction for a global platform that allows one integration to reach all of the countries in APAC. And I think the deeper, ethos behind this is our intention to process on local rails, keep value inside local economies, and work with regulators as long-term partners to support their national agendas. We really offer the commitment to double down on Asia, to help build how Asia pays today, but more importantly, to help co-build how it pays tomorrow and beyond, and make sure that our merchants can benefit from that experience as quickly as possible.
You've taken this role at a pivotal moment for dLocal and the region. What's the one thing that you're most focused on getting right?
I think that's a really great question, because there's so many things I want to focus on getting right. And I think that as a whole, I've always been led by a product vision, a relentless focus on building the best possible payments experience for our global merchants. But I think I also want to focus on why that matters. There is a bigger picture here, because if we get this product right, we're not just doing it for our merchants. We're not just doing it to serve the merchants. We are adding value to the countries that we operate in. I think that from the moment I moved to Asia myself, I've always believed in nation building. In all the markets in which we operate, I think that our thesis around payment sovereignty is the one thing that adds the most value to the economies that we are in, right? I think that payment sovereignty, keeping payments on local rails, strengthening local financial systems, making sure that money re-enters the local economies, that is essential to advancing each APAC nation's own agenda in terms of owning their own payments rails, and to give the millions of people who've been left out of the global digital economy so far a way in through servicing our global merchants.
Yang, thank you so much for your amazing answers and fascinating insights. A huge congratulations on your new appointment as CEO of APAC for dLocal.
Thank you so much, Ed. I'm so excited to be here, and I can't wait for what's next.
Ed, Yang, Ed, thank you both for this conversation. Moments like these where we get to introduce the people shaping dLocal's next chapter and hear directly about the work ahead is exactly what this podcast is for. To our listeners, to our investor base, thank you for tuning in for this special edition of dLocal Insights. APAC is one of our most important strategic priorities, and we hope hearing directly from Yang, the person leading this bet day by day, gave you a clearer picture of the opportunity, the complexity behind it, and the conviction in our approach to the region. This podcast, in the end, exists to give you a window into how we think, where we are going, and the people leading us there, beyond what you'll find in any of our earnings calls, quarterly reports, and so on. So thanks for listening, and we look forward to welcoming you back for the next episode of dLocal Insights.